Okay. All right, we're going to get started. We're going to be joined by some of the elected officials who represent the community in just a few minutes. But let me start by saying this. The whole idea of the City Hall in your borough weeks is to focus on the needs of people in neighborhoods all over the 5 boroughs and to make sure that our city government is never disconnected from its own people. And let's be clear, if you're just sitting in an office in Manhattan all the time, you cannot fully hear what people are feeling. I can attest to that. It's been, I think, 55 town hall meetings I've done now, and we've done numerous city hall in your boroughs, and they really give you a lot of perspective. So it's important to come out here and talk about the L train shutdown. This is truly on the minds of Brooklynites. And I've talked to a lot of Brooklynites and obviously a lot of Manhattanites as well about what this is going to mean for them. And people are really focused. They're really nervous. They want to make sure that the sheer magnitude of what's going to happen here is being acknowledged and acted on. And I'm here today to say, we got you. We are on this. The City of New York, our Department of Transportation, is focused every day on preparing for the L train shutdown. The MTA is as well. We're working very, very closely with the MTA in a very productive manner to get ready for this shutdown. Now, when I was on the train coming over here on the L train, heard from one of my constituents, a Brooklynite, who wanted to know, how's this going to work? What's it going to mean for me? That's the question we're getting everywhere. And we're telling people up front, this is a very big deal. This is going to cause some real dislocation. But we're going to make sure there are plans in place to make sure people can get around. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. It's going to take 15 months. But I can say with assurance, people will be able to get around. This is going to be, as a question of magnitude, one of the biggest transit projects, one of the biggest disruptions of existing transit service we've ever been through. This line was really damaged by Sandy. There was real work that has to be done. But it must be done so that the L train can work in the future for everyone. And I think New Yorkers understand that. They understand that sometimes it's better to just get the job done once and for all so that the future can work for everyone. This is a very, very busy line, legendarily busy. This line has gotten more and more crowded over the years. At this point, 400,000 rides daily on the L train, and 225,000 of those rides cross the East River, which is obviously the part that's deeply affected. So we know this is going to change people's lives while it's happening. We know commutes will take longer. People will lose some time with their families and the things they care about the most. We know it's going to put a strain on local businesses. None of that is easy. But we also know that New Yorkers are tough and resilient and adaptable, and that we will find our way through this. Now, one of the most important points here is that people were asked back in 2016 what was their preference: to see these repairs play out part of the time over a longer period of time, or get it done all at once. We got a really clear answer. It didn't surprise me one bit. New Yorkers want to get the job done. They'll live with 15 months of inconvenience to make sure that this is fixed once and for all. So what are we going to do to make sure that people can get around? Well, number one thing we're going to do is put on a lot more buses. And these are select bus service buses, so they move quickly. There will be 80 select buses crossing the bridge each hour. That means about 30,000 people a day can go on them. We're also making major changes in some key parts of the route. Obviously, a lot will happen at 14th Street in Manhattan. But right here on Grand Street, there are going to be major changes to make sure that people can get around and keep things flowing. It's clear that Williamsburg, East Williamsburg, Bushwick are the areas that are going to be hit the most. So this is where we have to make sure we're ready. And we're going to do that with these street changes. We're going to do that with those buses. We're also going to do it with ferries. We're working closely with the MTA on increasing ferry service. so L train riders can use our ferry landings that we now have as part of NYC Ferry. We're certainly going to be encouraging people to use their bicycles, and we're adding more dedicated bike lanes. That's going to be a really good option for a lot of people in this community. City Bike is going to play an important role. We already have the biggest bike share program in the entire nation. That will be expanded now by 10% more. And for the first time, those pedal assist bikes will be part of the lineup. We got a pedal assist fan here. All of these things are going to help to give people alternatives. We're also taking a lot of steps to ease congestion and to protect pedestrians in the meantime. And as I said, we got to think about the small businesses too. So there will be help for them, particularly making sure they have dedicated parking areas and loading areas so that this disruption does not hit their bottom line too hard. So it will be tough. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of coordination. We have a plan we believe in, but we're also going to be ready to make adjustments once we see how things work in action. But I can say that we're not going to leave anyone behind. This is the whole idea behind this administration. We believe in fairness. We want to make sure everyone is heard, everyone is respected. We're not going to forget any neighborhood. We're not going to forget any New Yorker who needs to get around. And it's literally a case of respecting the fact that if we aspire to be the fairest big city in America, we cannot let any New Yorker be stranded by the L train shutdown. We got to make sure that people have the options they need and that we give them the information they need to make it work. Just a few quick words in Spanish. Para los que viajen en el tren L, sé que el cierre del túnel el próximo año parece el fin del mundo. Pero quiero que sepan, mientras la MTA trabaja bajo tierra, haremos todo lo posible aquí arriba para hacerles la vida más fácil. No vamos a permitir que los neoyorquinos sean aislados de su ciudad. Again, we are not going to let people be isolated, be disconnected in their own city. With that, so much of the work of planning and preparing has fallen to Commissioner Polly Trottenberg and her team. We've been talking about this for many months. And one thing I can say for sure, this is like so many things that happen in New York City. Planning has been going on for a long, long time, getting ready for that day in April. So we will be ready. My pleasure to introduce Commissioner Polly Trottenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, you're forgetting, we've been talking to you now about this for a couple of years.
There you go.
And that is how long the planning has been going on. And as you said, we have worked really closely with the MTA. I think come up with the most robust set of plans we can. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and some of your colleagues for the leadership that you've provided. The challenge is epic, as you've said. The L train, if it were a standalone transit system, it would be the 10th largest in North America. And accommodating those folks from here in Brooklyn, making sure they can get to work, and where they need to go, and making sure on the Manhattan side that we balance all the impacts of bringing so many people to the surface is the challenge we face. I think we've had a terrific partnership with the MTA, and we're going to continue to work throughout this process to do everything we can to minimize the inconvenience to New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll switch with you. There you go. Thank you very much, Polly. Well, I've been spending a lot of time with Councilmember Antonio Reynoso lately in your district. We had a great bill signing just a few days ago. I know you've been all over this question and raising the concerns of your constituents to all of us in the administration. So my pleasure to introduce the man who represents where we are standing right now, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
Thank you, Will. Okay. All right. I'm going to use this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have had that ready. I apologize.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a great thing when the mayor's in the borough of Brooklyn and paying attention to these issues that are extremely important to us. Probably no more important issue related to transportation than our subway system here and the L train shutdown. So the work that's going to be done, that is being done now to prepare for the L train shutdown, I want to say is second to none. I really feel that this city, especially our commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, has gone above and beyond to set forth a model as to what this community could look like in the future, even after the L train shuts down. This street you see behind you with bustling traffic is a truck route. Is also a throughway to the Williamsburg Bridge and to the BQE. There's several schools on either side of it. There are businesses alongside on the other side of Bushwick Avenue. It's an extremely busy street. So how we operate for the L train shutdown is going to be important. The work that we've done over the last 5 years related to transportation, putting in bike lanes, pedestrian plazas, and other infrastructure has set us in a path to be successful come the shutdown. But should there ever be any complications, the city is also flexible enough to be prepared to make changes on day one to make sure that we make this as less of an impact as possible, considering the gratitude.
I like that.
The what is not the gratitude, the magnitude. Thank you, gratitude. I've been getting yes, the magnitude of what's going on. I think it's important to know that we've really laid down the foundation. The last thing I want to say is, again, the commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, has absolutely done everything in her power to address every single issue we've asked of her. Every single one. No issue was too small for this commissioner. And that is extremely important to note. In an effort like this, a lot of folks are concerned about every detail, are concerned about whether or not we hit every single point. We absolutely have. And when the time comes, I feel very comfortable that Polly's at the helm of really helping us through this L train shutdown. And thank you, Mayor, again, for coming down to Williamsburg, not only to fight for waste equity like we did a week ago, but also to understand the complications of the transportation that we deal with here in North Brooklyn. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilman. Oh, you got that? All right, thank you. You do it all. Next, I want to bring up the chair of the Transportation Committee in the Council. He has been focused with us on all the things that we have to do to prepare, and he obviously keeps oversight over the DOT to make sure it is on the case. Chairman Idanis Rodriguez.
Well, it's nice to be here with a great Mayor de Blasio and great Commissioner Polly Trottenberg, my colleague Espinal and Reynoso. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for your leadership on this and many other issues, and for continuing to put in place smart solutions to keep New Yorkers moving during the time of repair of the L train. Everybody agrees that while the tunnel repairs are necessary, the disruption will impact the commute of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers and visitors. The city and the MTA have been listening to the concerns of New Yorkers over the impact of this disclosure will have in their everyday lives, and will continue to work to ensure that these disruptions are managed in a way that minimizes the negative impact to commuters. The City Council, under the leadership of Speaker Johnson, my colleagues in the Committee of Transportation that I chair, will continue working with City Hall and the MTA to ensure that riders will have alternative mode of transportation during the times of the closure of the L train. Upgrading the bike facilities on Grand Street to accommodate the increase in cyclists will help mitigate the impact and hopefully making biking part of many New Yorkers' daily commutes throughout the city. Dockless and pedal assist bicycles, hopefully electric scooters, among the other forms of green transportation, have the potential to expand transportation in neighborhoods affected by the L train shutdown to create more affordable transit options for all New Yorkers and to help reduce New York City carbon footprint. Para nosotros es un honor estar aquí con un líder de la ciudad y de la nación, el alcalde Bill de Blasio, la comisionada, mi colega en el Consejo, buscando una alternativa en transportación durante el tiempo que se repara el tren L. Estar aquí presentando alternativas es ser responsable para los 8 millones de neoyorquinos, los residentes de estas áreas y los 65 millones de turistas que algunos de ellos vienen a este lugar. Vamos a seguir trabajando con el liderazgo del Speaker Corey Johnson, el alcalde de Blasio, los colegas en el Consejo, para asegurarnos que la MTA y todos nosotros proveemos la alternativa en transportación que se necesita durante el tiempo de construcción del túnel del tren Ellis. Gracias.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Now, as we said, the L train shutdown is going to affect a lot of neighborhoods. This is one of them. Certainly, Bushwick is going to be deeply affected, and representing Bushwick and surrounding areas that really are going to feel this, Council Member Rafael Espinal.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All the points are really hit, but one narrative that I've kept pushing throughout the years is the impact this is going to have on the local environment. We here in Bushwick and Williamsburg have some of the worst air quality that the city has to offer. And the L train shutdown means an increase in traffic, thanks to more people using Uber and Lyft and other rides, but also the increase of buses and trucks and the backup we're going to see. But I truly believe that the DOT has done everything they can in their power to make sure that we have a fluid transition from Brooklyn into Manhattan, making sure that there's no negative impact in the community. I do believe that there's more that the MTA can do to ensure we have more electric buses on our streets. There are 200 buses slated to be bought within the next few months, and I do hope that they do everything they can to make sure they're electric. But I also want to note that I am very, very happy and proud that the mayor and the DOT have implemented pedal assist bikes. We do know that they're a great alternative, and people will be more likely to use that, knowing that they won't break a sweat crossing the bridge getting into Manhattan, meaning that we'll have less cars and less ride shares to depend on. So thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am fully confident that DOT did everything in its power they can to make sure that transit riders were able to get to Manhattan as swiftly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you. Finally, representing Williamsburg and other neighborhoods that are affected, and I know he is hearing a lot of concerns from his constituents, Councilmember Steve Levin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to be here today with you, Mayor, and Commissioner Trottenberg, to show your absolute commitment to making sure that the thousands and tens of thousands of riders of the L train are not severely burdened when this shutdown happens. This is one of those opportunities that we have that is a kind of a great engineering challenge that the city and the MTA face together. And frankly, they've been working really well together, as I've seen it over the last several months, in making sure that all the solutions are integrated, that everybody knows what's happening in real time. But this is going to present a challenge that, from an engineering perspective, a traffic engineering perspective, I don't think we've seen in a very long time. Getting tens and tens of thousands of riders without this absolute lifeline. I know that, as it's been said, the L train, if it was a standalone transit system, would be among the 10 busiest transit systems in North America. That is a lot of people. A lot of people depend on it. And all along I've said that if commuters can have their commute impacted no more than 20 minutes each way, I think that we as New Yorkers, we're understanding, we can handle that. Any more than that, it'll start to be an issue. And I know that the modeling that they've done is showing that 90% of riders, I think, won't have an impact of more than 10 minutes. It's the strides have been significant, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen. I want to make sure that small businesses are not negatively impacted any more than is absolutely necessary. So we're going to be continuing to work with not only DOT and the MTA and the Mayor's office, but also Small Business Services to make sure that there's a helping hand for small businesses in all along the L line that might see an impact here. But Mayor, again, thank you for your commitment. I know that you're going to be on top of this 100%. I look forward to continuing to work with you, Commissioner Trottenberg, Commissioner Bishop, and in coordination with the MTA to make sure that the impact is as little as possible. We understand the trepidation that everybody has. We're going to do everything that we can to make it as minimal as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take questions about the L train shutdown and the work that's being done here on Grand Street and elsewhere to prepare for it. Then I want to talk about some other news of the day, and then we'll take questions on other topics. But first, anything related to the L train itself? Yes?
You mentioned responsibility.
Okay, we'll start here.
Mr. Mayor, in front of the cameras, you vowed to take full responsibility for the success or failure of the plan on day one.
Again, I just said it before, I'll say it again. We have a plan that we believe will work. A lot of work has gone into it at DOT and at the MTA, and we're ready to make adjustments if there's anything that needs work. But in terms of the level of preparation, the years of preparation that have gone into this, I feel it's the right plan to help people keep moving. Go ahead.
The city bike, we are actually at the eastern border of the city bike zone. Are you committed to expanding city bike into a wider area?
Well, we've already been expanding, but let me have Polly speak about the details.
Yeah, as you know, Gersh, we have first of all work to do with Motivate. We're doing a lot of infill to put more bikes and stations into Williamsburg and Manhattan. They're going to have a pedal assist shuttle to go over the Williamsburg Bridge, and we are looking at where we're going to go next, potentially deeper into Bushwick to expand that area. So yes, all those things will be on the table. We've unveiled some of them and are working through the next part.
Okay. Yes?
How would you characterize the purpose
of this press conference? To tell people in the communities affected that the city of New York is ready and that they will have ways of getting around. I think that's what people want to know. And again, part of why we do City Hall in your borough is to hear community concerns, but also to respond to community concerns. We're all hearing this all the time. What's going to happen? How's it going to work? We want to keep telling people and keep telling them, here are the ways we're preparing for it. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what your options are going to be. And I think that's important to people to hear that early and often. Yeah.
I have two questions. One is about the ferries. You said there's going to be more ferries, but when are you going to be announcing the increase? And can you assure people that there'll be enough capacity when they're already crowded now while the L train is running at rush hour? And the other question...
Okay, let's stay on that first. We'll take the second one after. So I want to start by saying, we know we are up against a big challenge. So to replicate what the full L train service provided, we are providing a lot more buses. We're providing the ferry service. We're trying to make it easier for people to bike. Obviously, a number of people will take other train lines if they live farther out. It's an imperfect series of pieces, but we think it's going to add up and give people good options. So in terms of the ferries specifically, this is new service in addition to the service we already have. Polly can speak to you about what it looks like so far.
Right. And just to be clear, the MTA is running this service. They're working with EDC on it. And ferries, by their very nature, the dock capacity is not that large. So it's not going to be a huge piece of the puzzle, probably carry, I think, 5%. And particularly, I think it'll be focused on people who live near the Williamsburg waterfront. So it's, as the mayor said, one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Like you said, there's going to be 80 buses an hour. Do we know yet, like, how many ferries and what the capacity will be or anything like that?
You know what? I'll get that to you again. It's I think my 8 ferries an hour. I just got it from my
Is that the
my
signal
team.
you
over.
got from,
That's the secret signal. 8. It's going to go from Williamsburg over to Stuyvesant Cove at 20th and Avenue C.
It was about the Uber cap, the rideshare legislation. A lot of people in these neighborhoods are worried now that, you know, with the cap on Ubers, that the timing for this was not right because they're planning to use vias or lift lines. You know, I know there's HOV restrictions on the bridge, but a lot of people in this neighborhood feel like that was a really bad move coming at this time.
Well, first of all, there are HOV restrictions on the bridge, and that's a central point in this. We want the focus on the bridge to be mass transit and vehicles that are carrying the maximum number of people. But as I said, what I think has been the missing link in this whole discussion, the for-hire vehicles, is if our studies showed that 40% of the time these vehicles are going around empty, we've got a whole lot more supply than we have demand. I've said very bluntly that is a strategy by Uber and the other companies to flood the market, Uber in particular, to try and dominate the market. It's not helping people to have a lot of empty vehicles around. There's clearly capacity, and if some more capacity is needed over here, those supply and demand dynamics will, I think, lead to that happening. Yes?
Cyclists and bus riders, they complain about blocked bus lanes, blocked bike lanes all the time now. Why should they believe that when this shutdown takes effect, that all of a sudden, you know, the new bus lanes, the new bike lanes that you're putting in are going to be cut to temperature?
Look, we are really emphasizing clearing bus lanes and clearing bike lanes. It's a big city. It's a complicated city. It's never going to be perfect. But certainly to all of the agencies involved, the idea is to enforce and keep those lanes clear. And in the context of a situation that is urgent, like the shutdown of an entire subway line, we'll be doubling down on enforcement in those areas. You want to add?
I'll just add and say we will have camera enforcement of the bus lane on 14th Street. We're trying to make as much of the bike infrastructure really segregated from cars. And I think, as the mayor said, we have also been working now for many, many months with NYPD to come up with the best possible enforcement protocols that we can.
Hold on, we're coming.
Commissioner, will the other bus lines have camera enforcement? And if not, how will you ensure, specifically on Grand Street, how will you ensure that traffic...
We will have cameras on Grand Street and on 14th Street. And look, I think you've heard the mayor say it. It's a big challenge, but we all recognize the urgency, particularly also for the L buses that are going to be snaking up into connect to the subway lines in Lower Manhattan. We just did a bus ride with a lot of elected officials and really took a hard look at making sure where we need to keep the lanes clear for those buses.
On the other bridges as a result of the HOV3 a concern, and what...
I'm sorry, just going to interrupt you for a second because I want you to hear the second piece of that answer. I want to emphasize, this is, 7-8 months away now. There's going to be a war room dynamic to this, and we're going to have to make a lot of adjustments. If we need more enforcement, we're going to do it. If we need more personnel, we're going to do it. If we need to run more buses, and it's possible to, whatever it takes to make things work. Now, what happens in a lot of these situations, if people are constantly warned of what's coming, they end up making adjustments of their own. So I hope and I pray that our projections are more dire than what happens in the end. But this is going to be like game on. Like, we're all going to be focused and making whatever changes we need. It's not a question of resources. This is a huge area of focus for all of us. And if the commissioner says she needs something to keep things moving, she's going to get it. Go ahead. What's your second question?
My second question was, you more or less answered it, but if the HOV3 restrictions, is there any question about them leading to spillover traffic on the other bridges? And how are you planning to handle that?
Right. I think we're really hoping, and you heard the mayor say it, through strong messaging, and many of you have heard me say this in the past, we're going to discourage you as being a single occupant vehicle driving into Manhattan during this challenging 15-month period. We're hoping that, that will encourage a lot of people to use the other modes, the buses, the bikes, take a subway from another part of Brooklyn or Queens if they're coming from Queens. Right now we're going to focus on getting the Williamsburg Bridge working. We'll have to see. If we see tremendous traffic impacts at the other East River bridges, we'll have to tackle that either through enforcement or come back and have further discussion about whether we need to do something stricter there.
If I'm getting off the train here at this stop and I want to get to 14th Street, how many minutes should I expect that to take?
We have an exact projection
good heavens.
for you. Yeah, give us a little time on that one. But everyone, look, we're going to say it now in August the year before, and we'll say it all throughout the lead up. People are going to need to leave more time to get where they're going. And the councilman just said the first weeks are going to be an adjustment period for everyone. And then we're going to get a sense of what's working and what adjustments, but that's going to be true for people. Again, I think everyday New Yorkers, they're not shocked at the notion that there was a natural disaster that affected this tunnel, and now it needs to be fixed, and there's going to be disruption. Most New Yorkers actually handle this stuff really, really well, and they make their adjustments and they go on with their life. Our job is to make it as easy as we can for them. Yeah. A little louder?
You talked about the war room mentality.
Yes.
Going on during the shutdown. Can you speak about the cooperation that happened there between the city and the
Yes. Yeah, on this, there's been tremendous cooperation. So, I think it's interesting that two organizations that sometimes don't see eye to eye can get on the same page, particularly in an urgent situation. And that's what's happened here for sure. Everyone I've talked to from the MTA, most recently Andy Byford, about this, was on the same page with us. We've made clear we're going to do everything that we can do. Everyone's taking it as a big, big challenge. So, sometimes the problem, Grace, is when people minimize the challenge and try and explain away. Boy, this is the exact opposite. Everyone is saying this is unprecedented. It's going to be a huge impact, and we're going to need everything we got. But I can tell you honestly, I have not felt there's any daylight between us and the MTA on how to approach this. Do you have any other questions on the L train shutdown and on what's going to happen here on Grand Street? Going once, twice? Okay, let me say something before we take other questions. So, a number of you have heard me say that probably the most formative experience for me when I was growing up in terms of understanding the world around me was the Watergate hearings and then later the resignation of President Nixon. And that time changed this nation fundamentally, but it also showed that our system works and that there were real restraints even on the President of the United States. I can only tell you I cannot remember since 1974 a day like today where the former campaign manager of the President of the United States is convicted and the President's personal lawyer plea bargains on the same day. And clearly, in the case of Michael Cohen, that plea points directly at President Trump. This is a plea related to violation of campaign laws. And we all know now that those conversations directly involve the president. I am not foreshadowing what's going to happen next. I don't know if it will be the same outcome as befell President Nixon. I am saying I don't think we've seen a day like this since the end of the Nixon presidency. And once again, it shows that our judicial system has provided some real consequences, even to some of the most powerful people in this country, and people worked literally at the right hand of President Trump. So a lot is going to change as a result of today. A lot more dominoes are going to fall. And that's before you even talk about the possibility of the Mueller investigation finding collusion with the Russians. So we're living in an even more powerful time than I think we realized, and it's going to test our democracy. But today's results show the strength of our institutions and show that our democracy is working. I want to see if there's any questions on that or anything else. Anyone on anything? Go ahead.
I'm curious, this originally wasn't a planned Q&A. What made you change your mind given the magnitude of what's going to happen?
Because of the questions related to this, we thought it was important. There's been so much concern to take the questions and continue the process of public education around it. Go ahead.
I have two questions. Now.
Hold on a second, please. Go ahead.
I have two questions.
Yes.
As you know, the gubernatorial candidates are going to debate about a week from now next week. I wonder, as a voter, what questions would you like to ask?
Hold on. They're trying to interrupt you. I heard they're debating.
Gubernatorial candidates, the Democrats are debating next week. As a voter,
Right.
What question would you like to ask Cynthia Nixon?
I like to ask both candidates. Hold on. We're working together here, Marcia. Let's get the sound interference out of the way. As a voter and a citizen, I want to ask both candidates, how are you going to fix Albany? Because the status quo in Albany is not working. The corruption continues. What are you going to do differently? Sure.
Albany 8 years ago and hasn't done it yet, and you have another person that doesn't know anything about Albany.
Well, again, I'm going to contest you on the second point. As you know, I have not taken a position in this race, and I'm considering it, and I'll say what I feel when I feel the time is right. But we have to be clear. I've known Cynthia Nixon for a long time. She has been fighting important battles in Albany. She knows a lot about how Albany works, and she's been fighting for parents and students. Sometimes victoriously and sometimes seeing how broken the place is and what needs to change. But look, the bottom line to both candidates is something different, something radically different has to happen in Albany. How are we going to end corruption? How are we going to get laws that actually encourage people to vote rather than discourage them? How are we going to get campaign finance laws that do not allow big money to flood the political process? Right now in Albany, you name it, it's broken. So I think, both of them are going to be challenged to provide a believable answer. Again, I'm weighing my options, and I know it's getting late in the election. I'm going to be making a decision soon.
Is that a endorsing for? I'm wondering about the AG race.
Yes.
Is that what the question was?
No, it's about a governor's race, but it's the same answer. I'm considering all options. All options are on the table, and I'll be speaking to it soon.
Primary?
Yes, before the primary. Whatever I decide to get involved or not get involved, in all these cases, it will be before the primary.
Not to get involved, you'll announce that as well.
I'll announce whatever I do. Yes, involved, not involved, the whole thing. I'll tell you.
Trump-related, but you were tweeting, the president tweeted that you were
Yes.
saying and responded, and recently he was tweeting at the governor. Is there anything we should read into what you're saying?
I think we should read into it. The president's not doing his job if he's so busy tweeting at people because he has minor disagreements like what their slogan is. I mean, that one was the strangest thing in the world to me because promises made, promises kept. I've heard 100 different leaders use that one. He didn't coin it, for God's sakes. But why does he even have the time to worry about it? He's supposed to be the leader of the free world. I find it kind of troubling that this is what he puts his time into. But maybe it is a distraction from his other problems of the day. No, the bottom line is we're trying to get things done, and it's just a strange use of the president's time. Okay, thanks, everyone.